This is really such a great story. We're so happy to bring this to you today. They get to learn about a clean energy project that's going to be a first in Quebec. It's Inuit led. It's going to allow the community to replace diesel fuel completely, and they can use clean energy for 100% of all heat and power instead. This will completely change life in the community for the better. It's almost unprecedented in Canada, and a documentary has already been made and screened about it. Let's find out more.
Chris Henderson is Executive Director of Indigenous Clean Energy. And our guest as well, Eric ATAGOTAALUK, is the Inuit Climate Leader. They're both on the line right now. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Let me start with something that up until, I think we can both say, Natasha, we heard about this, didn't know anything about it. So it seems like a fairly significant achievement. Can one of you tell us exactly how this came to be?
Do you want
Sure. Why don't you tell the story because your community's lived it?
Yeah, well, it's been quite a few years to develop this project. We started the whole process in 2008, and finally went into the construction stage in 2020. Since we're a small community with little resources, it took a while to develop, but we're in the final stages of construction finally.
Okay. Eric, why is diesel such a problem for the community?
Well, it's been the only reliable, source of energy in isolated communities like ours. There's very little development in renewable energy around our area. And since, it was first introduced in the 1960s, and the only way to transport diesel is through ships that coming down from Montreal when the ice has melted. And so far, it's the only reliable source of energy for all the communities in isolated communities. And we were fortunate, at least for our community, fortunate that we have a river that has continuous flow throughout the year that will allow us to develop this project.
Can I ask with respect to, because obviously something like this, even for a small community, takes a lot of different people getting involved. It requires, I would guess, a lot of hurdles along the way. Chris, from your perspective, when you hear about a project like this, someone's willingness to want to change things for the better, certainly as far as energy and climate is concerned, how do you jump in? How do you get involved?
Well, I think this has to be based in the community, Aaron. You have to make sure the community is behind it. And for the first several years of the project, starting in 2008, we worked with the community to make sure they wanted to see the project go ahead. In fact, there was a community vote that over 80% of the community voted in favor of the project, said yes, we wanted to go ahead, even though the water is actually used by the community for their own needs. And then you forge the partnerships, one with the private sector, in this case, Intergex Renewable Energy, and then also negotiating the partnership with Quebec Hydro, and then support from the Canadian and Quebec governments. All of those took many, many meetings to happen, but we got there.
Has it been I'd love to hear from both of you in terms of, the collaboration. Has it been an easy process? What was it like to be working so closely with the community? And then conversely, what was it like to be working so closely with clean energy people? So let's start with you, Chris. Tell us how was this collaboration?
Well, it wasn't easy in the early days. I'll let Eric talk about the community. I'll talk about the relationships with Hydro-Quebec. Eric and myself, the other team members, probably took 30, 40, 50 trips to Montreal and Quebec City, meeting with Hydro-Quebec to see if we could go. And for many years they said, no, we don't think this project would work. 3 or 4 years ago, with the support of Intergex Renewable Energy, and we had to find that partnership, which is a very effective one, finally we convinced Hydro-Quebec this does make sense, and now they're totally on board. But it took us almost a dozen years of going back and forth to show them that we knew the resource was there, we knew the ability to develop a project in the north was there, and finally they came around to it. And Eric, you can talk about how the community came on board.
Eric, I'm curious too, specifically about, I'm sure there was a lot of hesitation on the part of the community. You've had a bad experience with diesel and it being dirty, and I'm sure there was a huge concern in the community how this would affect your day-to-day lives.
Definitely. We still depend on the river a lot, not just for our community water source. We still do a lot of fishing on this river where we're developing this project. And there was some convincing to do. We did a lot of community presentations throughout the whole feasibility stage. We wanted to educate our community at the same time how run-of-the-river projects can be developed without or by minimizing environmental impact. And I think that was our strong point, where we did as much as presentations as possible to our community members, which led to a very strong support from our community members.
Can I ask, Eric, how hard was that to do? It's one thing to realize that things need to change, but you're not getting support provincially at the beginning anyway. Did people who you talked to within your community understand the need for change and why it was so important?
Well, first of all, climate change is very obvious in our communities. We're seeing the impacts of climate change every day now. Certainly, weather patterns are changing. Spring is arriving earlier. We should have snow by now. We still don't have snow as of November. We used to do trick-or-treating when I was a child by snowmobile, and we can't even do that anymore. And it was very obvious that we need to change how we produce energy, and getting away from diesel was definitely a smart option for our community.
Yeah, can I just ask one other question? With respect that this has been as big a success as it has, and so many different people have collaborated, is the idea here, either one of you, that other communities now look at this as an example and think we can do the same thing, perhaps?
Yeah, I've been working in remote communities across Canada with Indigenous people to get off diesel and into clean energy. And the good news is there are about 4 or 5 dozen communities doing that across the country. Inukjuak is the most prominent, though, because it's the largest community that's doing this in terms of getting 100% or almost 100% of diesel use for both power and heating. And in that regard, it's going to be a model. And I know the people of Inukjuak are willing to share their experiences throughout Nunavik and Quebec Arctic and the whole of the Canadian Arctic. So there are other communities that are moving forward. Inukjuak is really taking it forward in a very deep way, in a very substantive way. And I think that's what's going to stand out.
And a documentary has been made to follow this whole process. I think I'd love to hear from each of you. We'll begin with you, Eric. What's it like to see this finally come to fruition, to see it really happening?
It's definitely exciting. I mean, it took years, not less than 10 years to develop this project. Now that we're at the final stage of the construction, which is in a matter of months, that we'll be completing the construction stage now into commissioning, hoping in spring of next year. Is definitely getting very exciting for our community and us.
And Chris, for you?
This is going to change Inukjuak, it's going to change Quebec, it's going to change Canada. Because for the community, not only is it getting on clean energy away from diesel, combating climate change, it also is a significant revenue earner. Funds that will be used to support the community's social needs, economic development. And this is what the clean energy revolution is really about. It's really getting abundant change that checks off a number of boxes of benefit for climate, benefit for economics, benefit for social communities. And that's the story that's being told.
Yeah, which is wonderful news, obviously, for anybody listening. I'm just wondering, though, Chris, in your case, when you talk about years and years of trying to get something done with a provincial, authority like Hydro-Quebec, and finally they go ahead, does that make you more optimistic that it'll be easier to get this to happen continually across the country?
Well, I think organizations like Hydro-Quebec have also learned a lot. They realized this can be done and led by Indigenous communities, by Inuit communities, by First Nations. And I think they can do other projects like this. I know elsewhere in the Quebec Arctic, more projects are being pursued as a result. I think if we deal with climate change and clean energy, you have to be optimistic, because that gives you the energy to make change.
Erica, I understand that the documentary, now that it's completed, was screened for the first time at a local high school there. What was the reaction to it?
It was surprising. I mean, we don't get to show any local people being involved in large projects like this. I mean, this is a huge project for our community, although it's only a 7.5 megawatt project. But that it was started by local people, we were hoping that it would inspire the students and get more involved in local affairs. It was very inspirational for our students.
Where will people be able to watch the documentary?
Yeah, the documentary is, I would note that, one, the documentary was on the C2V platform where anyone can watch it. It will also be on other platforms through Concordia University.
Okay.
And I would note that we're also going to put it on Indigenous Clean Energy. And really exciting is that I'm about to get on a plane this evening to go to the major global climate change meetings in Egypt called the Conference of the Parties. And we're going to be screening this video to a global audience. So it's had its launch yesterday in Inukjuak, and then it's going to have a global launch later next week in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, so that global audience will see what an Inuit community can do with leadership for clean energy.
Wow, isn't that great? Wow. You know, it's a wonderful story, and congratulations to both of you and to the communities involved for actually getting this done. And as I said earlier on, let's hope that other communities are able to follow your lead and do the same. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for the interest on our project.